What would you describe to our viewers as green energy?
Well, green energy is actually, that's a very wide definition. But
Okay.
within there is renewable energy, like photovoltaic systems or wind electrical generating systems, okay? Also within there is evaluating existing buildings and looking for ways to make them more efficient with insulation, air sealing upgrades, appliances that are more efficient, lighting that's more efficient, things like that. Okay, so there's a wide variety, and actually there's another greening aspect when you're building a new home to reduce the environmental impact of actually constructing the home as well as living in the home. So that's making it more energy efficient, but also maybe trying to minimize, let's say, concrete use.
You didn't mention solar energy.
Well, photovoltaics is a form of solar energy.
Okay.
That's solar electric generation.
Okay.
So, but there's also solar thermal. That's another renewable technology. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. But one thing I would say is renewables like photovoltaic solar or passive solar, let's just use those two examples, they're great. If you want to heat your house with the sun, if you build it and you orient it to take advantage of that and do a few other things to take advantage of that, that's great. That's going to help. But if you don't deal with the envelope so that what comes in there stays in there longer, the heat, all right, then it's not really going to work, or at least work as effectively. The same thing with photovoltaics. If you want to generate electricity on site, that's great. But what you need is efficient appliances and efficient lighting and things like that, because it reduces how much electricity you need to generate.
You were telling us you live in the Syracuse area, and you live in a home which is about 100 years old. And you said because of your knowledge in your profession, you were able to make some changes in your home which has reduced your energy consumption in your house. What did you do to your home? Maybe these are things that the average viewer could relate to.
Okay, well, it's a 100-year-old house. When I bought it, there was no insulation in the walls. There was only a little bit of insulation in the attic. Okay,
Right.
So one thing I did was, and there's different materials you can use to do this, but I knew that I needed a better R value in my walls in my attic. My attic happens to have a floor, so it's an enclosed cavity, kind of like a wall, only it's laying flat. Mm-hmm. So I used a material called cellulose, and I installed it to high density, which is about 3.5 pounds per cubic foot. And what that does is that gives you a good nominal R value for every inch of material thickness, plus the little cracks and crevices that are associated with that surface between inside and outside that were resulting in air leakage are sealed. So I reduced the airflow on the house, gave it a better R value. There's other things that I did too.
Usually the houses that you see during the winter that have the big icicles hanging off their roofs, those are the houses with insulation problems, right?
Typically that's true, but it might be attributable to a large leak to the attic.
All right.
All right. I mean, I've gone into houses before where you look in the closet and there's actually no ceiling. That's an airflow from where you're heating the house to the attic. So that's going to result in melting and refreezing and ice dams and roof damage. So, and that's the discovery process of the comprehensive home assessment. Maybe it's the insulation, maybe it's air leakage, maybe it's the lack of attic ventilation in that case, or maybe it's a little bit of all three. And so you're going to have to come up with basically the work scope to address the needs of that particular house.
What are generally, no matter what house it is, no matter what age of the house, some of the things that, problems or things that should be handled immediately during your home assessment? Is there just a common denominator for all houses?
Well, actually, the most immediate needs that come up very frequently in houses that we evaluate are health and safety problems. That's part of our comprehensive home assessment. We test the heating and hot water systems, the combustion appliances, to see if they're making carbon monoxide, how much they're making, if it's going to the outside through the chimney, or if it's coming into the house. And if we find a problem like that, that obviously gets the highest priority in the work scope, and depending on the level of that problem, it may have to be dealt with immediately, right then, because it's an immediate hazard to the people that live there, and it could harm them.
Now, if someone has this home assessment done, when they receive the report comes from New York State, or it's an official report coming out of where?
It's an official report, but it's actually generated by the software. And the state sets the guidelines for the process of evaluating the house, and the state has determined which software should be used to model this, because there are different softwares. Right. We actually use a different software in the new homes program than we do in the existing homes program. They're similar but different.
What I'm saying is, when you receive the report at your home, are you, because these are tough economic times, and you see, okay, the house should have this done, this done, this done, but someone says, well, my God, right now I've just lost my job, or I've had major medical bills or something. Are they legally mandated because of this report on the New York State level to do the work?
No, but okay. let me give you a little bit of background about that in a few different ways. One's going to be about financing, and one's going to be about homeowners that might want to try and do the work themselves.
Right.
Okay. First of all, in the Home Performance with Energy Star program, there's, depending on their income, they may be available for free work through the local weatherization or community action agency.
Okay.
They may be eligible for a subsidy, which would pay part of the cost of the repairs. They may be eligible for financing, which is at low interest. Or if they had the money, they might be able to pay, they could pay it, and they would be eligible for a rebate of, I believe it's 10% of the cost, up to a maximum amount. All right, so that's the financing aspect of it. Actually, there's other programs in there, similar programs that may provide some of that work as well. Through your local community development office, sometimes the funding from there can be combined. Another program is Empower New York. That might be able to be combined with some of those other options. Okay? Now, another thing that comes up sometimes is the homeowners say, okay, I can get the free analysis through Green Jobs Green New York, and then I'm not going to pay a contractor, I'm going to put in my own insulation. Well, here's the issue there. All right, one is the insulation itself is not necessarily the total issue. If there's leakage through the insulation, whether it's the old or the new insulation, all right, the insulation will not act the way it should. The R value, which is its ability to resist heat loss, is going to be reduced by the airflow. So it has to be done properly to make sure that there's air sealing for what's called an air or pressure boundary, and proper insulation for what's called a thermal boundary. And then there's another aspect of this, okay? What we teach is called the house as a system. And every time that a contractor does any work in the house, they have to test out at the end of the day. If they've not finished the job, they have to reevaluate the combustion appliances to make sure they're safe for operation until they come back the next day, and they have to use the blower door to test the leakage again. And that's because we want to make sure that we don't create a hazardous situation for the homeowner. Now, if the homeowner was going to try and do some sealing and insulating themselves, but they really don't have the tools or the training to do those other tests, then there's a possibility their house could be safe right now, but use a lot of energy, and they could make it maybe a little more efficient, but they could also create a situation that could harm them unknowingly. So that's a critical aspect of what we do. BPI has it right in their standards. Do no harm to the occupants and the workers or to the structure. So what we're trying to do is do the work and not create extenuating circumstances related to the work that are going to affect the people. And furthermore, we're looking for those situations that are out there right now for existing conditions that people don't even know about. Carbon monoxide, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, and you can't see it.
Would you briefly explain again what the New York State Center for Energy Efficiency and Building Science, a division of Hudson Valley Community College in Troy, which is a collection of 12 other schools in New York State, is all about, and why it would be beneficial to New York State residents to take advantage of it?
Well, New York State residents have an opportunity to save a substantial amount of energy. And if with an older home, a 100-year-old home, the savings can be very, very large. With a newer home, it can be substantial, probably in the 20 to 30% on average, if I looked at the population of houses in the state. All right, so that's a big incentive for them to contact someone with Home Performance with Energy Star or someone with Green Jobs Green New York to get an evaluation. And once they get an evaluation, they can move forward with what needs to be done, or maybe they'll find out that everything's working. But the point is if you don't ask, you don't investigate, you're not going to know. And there is one other thing I want to say is, Workforce Development Institute, WDI, that's a division of Hudson Valley. CEEBS is actually a division of WDI. Workforce Development is the ones that offer the photovoltaics, for example, along with other things like medical and information technologies and classes like that. And those classes, we can get you a website and an email so you can get information about that. We can actually do the same thing for CEEBS. We'll give you that website and that email information.